And welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Science of Mind, the study of life. When we say the study of life, we really mean that, the study of life and the nature of the laws of thought. The reason we want to think about that, study it, understand it, take a hold of it, and really embody that awareness is because of what I'm about to share with you today. Dr. Deepak Chopra said, in addition to the reading that you just listened from Bob, Deepak Chopra says, we live in a field of all possibility. You will find pretty much the same, he said, which is true in a lot of philosophies, that we live in an infinite possibility. The Bible says all things are possible to those who believe. Why does it take belief for the possible to show up? The reason is that our minds, when it believes something, it triggers the law to produce that. So it is important for that statement that says it's done unto you as you believe. That's a principle. And when we use that, we are using the opportunity to tap into infinite possibility, limitless possibility. You know, as Bob read, the science of mind is based entirely upon the supposition that we are surrounded by a universal mind. That's the universal mind. When we think we are using part of that universal mind, we think in that mind. The mind in its original state fills everywhere. We cannot step out of that mind. It lives around us and through us. It is in us and we are always in it. So right now where you are sitting, right now where you are home, right now where you are watching and attending this service, you are sitting in the mind. So every time we think, that mind is activated. It's triggering a law that is limitless in its possibility. You see, there's a universal consciousness which is omnipresent consciousness. The reason I'm bringing that up is so that we could understand where we are. It says there's a universal consciousness which is omnipresent consciousness, and it is not separate from our individual consciousness. In fact, if you and I were not conscious beings, in order for us to be conscious beings, if there was not a consciousness which pre-existed our individuality. So before you were born, before you were brought here on this planet, there was an infinite consciousness, a universal consciousness. So it doesn't matter what state you were born in, what country you were born in, that preceded you and I and every human being. So we are born into that consciousness because it pre-existed us. Our individuality came and took hold of the portion that we use. It is out of that universal comes the individual. We are not only surrounded by it, as I said before, it is in us. There is a spontaneous sense of an irresistible union that takes place as we become aware, we get to use that. So having said that, it is important for us to remember that there is no way to think outside of that creative mind. If you think you could just shut it off and then think a thought on your own and say, do whatever you want, I'm not going to trigger the activity of the infinite mind, that's not possible. Because the mind that we are using is part of the mind of that universal mind, part of the mind of God. Universal limitless possibilities exist. You know, Deepak says, when we think, we create chemicals, and we load up all our organs with chemicals when we think of them. He says our thought, there are some 60,000 thoughts every day that every human being expresses or is triggered by or triggers into that universal mind. 60,000 thoughts. The thoughts that are there to create our experience. Consciously or unconsciously, we personalize and customize our mental atmosphere, which says, this is how I am in the world. I really wanted to get that because that's so true. You say to yourself, conscious of it or not, this is how I am in the world. This is through our mental atmosphere, the atmosphere of mental power that we have built up as a result of thinking. Paul the Apostle said, be transformed in the spirit of your mind. That's great. Be transformed in the spirit of your mind. Be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. In so doing, we transform our lives, our world, and our experience of it. If you want to have a different experience, would you like to have a different experience, a better experience, a more enhancing experience, more love in your life, more wholeness in your life, more beauty, more well-beingness, more prosperity? All of that comes as a result of how we use our minds. It's not dependent on your job. It's not dependent on anything else outside of yourself. When you consider what the world is facing right now, the coronavirus, we can be heartened by the thought, the possibility, the prospect, and hope of a new way of being coming out of this, becoming master of your own life. This is what this virus is really waking us up to. When we learn to master that, we can master our lives. The reason that is because we have allowed ourselves to be mastered by things outside of ourselves. When we learn to master the things outside of ourselves, we are not mastered by it. Then we get to master our own lives. The coronavirus is an effect of something that the human mind created. We don't have to know where it came from. We don't have to know how it was made. What we have to know is that we can master it. What we have to know is that we can now use the power of our mind, understanding that there's this universal consciousness that we were born into, that we individualize, and that we can now speak our word, create a new mental environment. Some people spend all the time just soaked up in the fear of this. They hear it repeated, and they become more fearful about this, and eventually they're attracted. Eventually they get to experience it. Whether it's fear sitting in their chairs watching this on TV or wherever, they're experiencing it. Thank goodness not everybody is infected by it, physically that is, because it leads to death in most cases. There are over 76,000 people who have died in the United States alone as a result of this virus. And it is a scary thing. But take your power, and know that you are part and sitting in that consciousness of aliveness, that you can speak your word into form. Dr. Holmes says there's such a thing as demonstrating the control of conditions. That's on page 266. He says there's such a thing as demonstrating the control of conditions. That's one of the principles of the science of mind. It's in the Declaration of Principles in the Science of Mind. So what if you learned how to demonstrate, how to change the things that you're demonstrating? Demonstrating change. Change the things, control the things that are demonstrating in your life. Although, such as all things are thoughts, all thoughts are, he says, all thoughts, such as greed, envy, malice, resentment, undue accusativeness, become mental waste products, but are not left out of the personalized mental atmosphere. That's shocking. Every time we criticize somebody, every time we find fault with somebody, every time we find fault with a problem, every time we become angry and envious and jealous, becomes what he calls waste products of the mind. Mental waste products, but they're not left out of our personalized mental atmosphere. So I'm here to say we shall be able to prove this in such a degree as we are successful in looking away from the conditions which now exist. We look away from the conditions. We don't deny that it's there, but we don't give it attention. We give the attention to the power within ourselves, because, you know, the more we pay attention to what's outside of us, the more what's outside of us becomes part of our life. While accepting better ones, we pay attention, we look at what's going on, but we accept better conditions. Not only must we accept this intellectually, but our acceptance must become a subjective embodiment. In other words, if I say I accept that, but it doesn't become an embodiment, I don't embody it. I don't believe it enough to feel it, to live it, to let it live in me. It's useless. It must become a subjective embodiment of which the intellect furnishes but a mental picture, page 266. You see, when we embody something, we begin to have mental pictures of it. This is having imagination. The imagination is the workshop of the mind. When we imagine something good, it creates a picture. If we follow that picture and retain that picture, if we repeat that picture, it begins to form in our outer world. Now, the same is true if we embody fear, if we embody worry, if we embody hurt and pain and resentment, and all of that becomes part of our physical world manifestation. Page 266 and 267. This, he calls, the universe is calling you to a higher ground. Will you respond yes? The universe is calling all of us to a higher ground. Are you willing to step up and take hold and become in charge of you, not a virus, not the fear of the virus, not the reports of the many deaths? We don't dismiss that, but we don't embody it. We don't allow it to sink into our subconscious mind. And finally, we use this power to overcome all of that. There is no better time than right now to focus your best attention. Right now. You see, if you say, well, I'll think about it and then I'll come to a decision, you will never be able to repeat this moment. Think about that. You cannot repeat this moment. So that's why I ask people to make a decision now about your life. Make a decision to take charge of your life. Make a decision to study the power of your mind. Take classes. You know this wonderful class we're teaching on Monday nights? We have 6 people in there. We're having such a good time. But what we're discovering is that we can speak up, we can use the word to become a power in our lives. And this is session 4 we're going into. We're going to talk about the principle of spiritual mind treatment, the way how to treat your mind like you take a shower, you give your mind a shower. Spiritual mind treatment is really helping us to cleanse. In the Bible, it says we must first cleanse what is inside of us, so that when we speak, we are putting in through a cleansed interior, ready to receive. Through this power, we are either attracting or repelling. Are you attracting and repelling? What are you attracting? What are you repelling? He says, like attracts like. And it is also true that we may become attracted to something which is greater than our previous experience by first embodying the atmosphere of our desire. Page 294. So now listen to this. Take as the starting point the idea that the essence of our life is God. It follows that he uses man, we use the same creative power. Everything originates in the one, comes from the same source, and returns to it again. As God's thought makes worlds and peoples them with living things, so our thought makes our world and peoples it with our experience. Page 294 to 295. That's it. The first hint of how we can direct and deliberately use the magnetic power of our mind. I'm giving you this as your tools. Embody the atmosphere of your desire. There's a law of unfoldment in man, in humanity, which says he can advance only by going from where he is to where the place he would like to be. Page 271 of the Science of Mind. The law works from the belief to the thing. That's the law of unfoldment. Page 271, the law of unfoldment. That's a principle. So become conscious. Become the conscious, not the unconscious master of your life. Life is made of selection and consequence. Make a choice, you get a result. Make a decision, you get a response. Take an action, you get a reaction. Use imagination, you get a demonstration. Do a visualization, you get a manifestation. Those are the ways that we use our minds, and those are the actions that we take and receive the result. We are always successfully using our mind, and I call that our M-power, either for enhancement, enchantment, or for destruction, degradation, for lack or abundance, for success or failure. A guy I used to know, Bobby Siegel, said, never consider yourself a failure. You can always serve as a bad example. Never consider yourself a failure. You can always serve as a bad example. End of quote. When we are expressing our true talents, we lose track of time, because time is not where the power really is. It's in what you do right now with that. Do you want to experience the eternal? Get into the flow of your universal oneness. Open up to the power of possible. What is possible? Think about possibility. When choosing a dream, look to your heart, not to your reality. That's why it's called a dream. Make that dream your goal. Commit to it. Act upon it. That is a commitment. Act upon the commitment. The method to fulfill that dream will appear if you make a commitment to your dream. Joseph Campbell said that. In the Science of Mind, we say, change your thinking, change your life. So the topic is, of what are you thinking? Of what are you thinking? Is there a better time for you than right now to change your mind? As I said, you cannot duplicate this moment. You may say, okay, I'll think about what you're saying, and when I get home, I'll give it some thought. Well, you know what? The old patterns are still there. And when you are not in this environment, it's not as easy to think about it. No one knows what other elements are awaiting you in this perfect moment, so take a hold of it. As she thinks into this universal mind, she sets a law in motion, which is creative and which contains within itself a limitless possibility. So today I want to read you the affirmation again, based on what you heard. It says, today I am open to the constant awareness of where I am and to the awakening of where I want to be. This awakening energizes my creativity, my creative activity is empowered, energized, and the power of spirit to move me toward the first attention of my dreams. And so I let it be, and so it is. Namaste. God bless you. Let's do a spiritual mind treatment right now. Close your eyes. And let's see if we could activate something in us that takes us to the first step. I know there is one life, and that life is God, and that life is perfect. That life is the life of all life. It is a being of all beings. That mind is an infinite mind. It is infinite intelligence, infinite wisdom, infinite clarity, perfect clarity, peace beyond human understanding. This is the power of God. This is the power of life. This is the power we call into our consciousness right now, our awareness, this power. I am one with that life because I am made out of that life. Every life is, we are all individuations of that one life. And everything that is in that one life, everything exists in its making. So as individuals, we are microcosms of the one life. I accept that for myself, and I accept it for everyone here today. Knowing this truth about myself and about the truth of others, I can now declare that we have the power to change, and that we dare to step into that power and declare from now on, I have begun, I am weaving a new mental environment around me that I sit in, that I live in, that I eat in, that I sleep in. That one new mental environment that that atmosphere that I am building around me is one of wholeness, peace, love, prosperity, gratitude, and power, self-empowerment. This is the new mental environment that I live and walk and have my being in from day to day, from moment to moment. And out of the 60,000 words that will pass across my mouth, my words, my mind, my breath, comes all of those 60,000 words are energized by this new mental atmosphere that I am creating right now. I declared it is being created now. not only for myself, but for those who accept the challenge of starting a new life now. I give thanks for the power of the spoken word. I know that my words cannot return void, but they accomplish whereunto they have been spoken right now. I release them to that power, to that law, that immutable law that is released because I have said a word. I created an energy that energizes the power of creation through the law, and it is done. And so it is. Amen. Thank you for listening. I hope you've experienced something new for yourself.